Midwest Fur Fest 2010, a convention for furries. You may not have heard of them before, or maybe you have but just don't get it. Not that anyone would blame you, furries are a bit weird. But what you may take from this documentary is that it's a good kind of weird, that furries are interesting, creative, and not much like what you may have heard in the media. So just what is a furry anyway? The answer isn't very straightforward, and later on you'll see some unique answers from a handful of furries themselves, but it's safe to say that all furries share an interest in the idea of the anthropomorphized animal, that is, animals with human characteristics. Furries generally express this interest by taking on an alternate persona, or fursona in furry speak. This alternate character carries deep meaning to the person, and may represent traits that they admire and would like to see in themselves. Furries also tend to be a creative bunch, with many artists among their ranks. Furry artwork is a vital part of the cultural exchange among the furry fandom, and comes in many forms and styles. Some furries even go so far as to fursuit, that is, wear a crafted suit that embodies a furry character, while only a fraction of furries fursuit is perhaps what they are most visibly known for. I got a chance to sit and chat with a handful of different furries. Some were picked at random, others are prominent figures in the community. My goal was to find out what being furry means to them, how it fits into their life, and give them a chance to explain their experience in their own words.
Man, I've been discovering the fandom, I think when I was about 15. I'm 21 now. I started out, sadly, as a Sonic fan. I didn't even really realize what the whole furry thing was. And I ended up on DeviantArt, and that's when I started seeing like the anthropomorphic stuff, Star Fox fan art, and then I started seeing characters that were not Star Fox, not Sonic, but they were all fan-made, I suppose. And that's when I started going, oh, hey, I'll make my own character. And then I realized that there was an actual connection to that, and there was an actual group of people dedicated, not necessarily to fan-made characters, but just their own personas as a whole, and that's how I ended up discovering the fandom. I am a cat. What's funny, though, is the way I had designed him was a mistake. Back then I had a really old computer with a really old screen, and I started out as a sprite. I was editing sprites, so I took a tail sprite, cut the tails off, recolored him blue, made him look like a cat. The problem is the screen looked like it was blue, but when I got my new computer, I found out that I had been making him lavender, or periwinkle as a lot of people have been calling him the whole time. And I didn't want to change that. I didn't want to change my image, because I had been doing that for so long, a couple of years I think. So he's just been kind of purplish the entire time. Actually, Nanaki was my old name, derived from Final Fantasy. I stopped that for a while now, and now I'm Thibby, which was a nickname that some random person on Second Life started calling me, because my Second Life name is Nanaki Thibodeau. So they just shortened out the last name, and that is now my new persona name.
It was while I was in college, and I was pursuing a computer science degree, so I got that obligatory first account on the internet. And I was feeling rather unoriginal, and I needed a login name for the university computers, and I had this D&D character named Smash. I just typed that in. Here's an account. That's easy to remember. And funny thing about the internet, it kind of became permanent, and I didn't take it seriously then, but that email address, smash@university, it stuck. And people started calling me by that login name. And it became more of a nickname for me as a human form. And then I found lots of non-professional reasons to be on the internet, social reasons. While I was in college, I spent a lot of time on Usenet in IRC. And of course that nickname carries on, and you become your own internet personality, if you will. You have this whole side of you. So, even before I had identified with furry, I already was, connecting these alternate identities with me. And as I explored different parts of the internet, I started to find out different parts about me. And I found the horror community. I was really into werewolves, and I knew I had an affinity for wolves. I can hear them howling right now in the lobby right there. But yeah, it just kind of evolved from there. And then one day, one of my friends from school and that werewolf fan community I asked him what he was doing that week, and he said, you wouldn't be interested. I'm going to this party. I was like, well, what kind of party is that? And next thing I know, I'm crammed into a Toyota Cressida with 4 furries on a 6-hour journey to Toronto to go to a furry party at a convention. That had to be in like 1995, 96 time frame. And and when I went there, I figured I wouldn't know anybody except people I went with. But it turns out all these people that I knew from these other, like the werewolf community, for instance, the online horror fans, they're all at this convention. I'm running into people I know. So there was already this crossover. And it already felt like family. And I think that's the biggest thing about the furry fandom for me is it kind of became family for me because it was like wherever I went, there they were. And it wasn't just a furry convention. It became a part of my life.
Well, I got into the fandom about 3 years ago. My best friend Ben Zum, he got me into it, and you know, like Leo Angelo said, you know, I've always thought fur creatures were always cute. I always thought, you know, they were very happy. You know, there's a lot of emotions. You know, they have the same exact emotions as humans do. You know, but one of my college mate Blake convinced me to come here, and honestly, from what I've seen, I really like it. Just like Leo Angelo said, people are nice. They actually understand. They actually open-minded. I mean, you do get the occasional asshole, but you know it happens. But you know, you just got to learn to ignore them and move on. It's a simple way of thinking, and I've been doing it for years. And you know, if you feel a bad vibe or somebody's trying to be mean to you, you just ignore, get up, walk away.
I kind of did my own like research into this kind of thing. I always had like the liking to like cartoons and fantasy kind of animal stuff, but I didn't really know there was any kind of category into it. So I looked around online, and I did not know there was a whole community for, well, into the kind of stuff I'm into. So I figured I might as well join, and I've been happy ever since.
I got into fandom back in about 1998, 1999. I had found The Lion King, the Disney movie, and I thought the movie was amazing. And I discovered there was a community of The Lion King. And there's quite a bit of crossover between the Lion King fandom and the furry fandom. It was only a matter of time before I found the larger fandom, and I found, hey, these people have conventions. This could be fun. And let's see, 45 conventions later, this is my 46th furry convention since then, and I've been having fun the whole time. Giza, he is an anthropomorphic leopard, gets confused to say cheetah for some reason. Everyone thinks I'm a cheetah. That's about it for the character. He's just a virtual alter ego of myself.
Now that you've heard a bit from some furries that I interviewed at random throughout the hotel, I'd like to introduce you to a few special interviewees. The first is Dr. Samuel Conway, also known as Uncle Kage. In addition to being the chairman of Anthrocon, the world's largest furry convention, he is also a published doctor of chemistry, avid storyteller, and accomplished auctioneer. Matt Davis, also known as 2 the Ranting Griffin, or just 2 Griffin, is a popular furry comedian, and often works with Uncle Kage, putting on shows at furry conventions around the world.
I don't know. I don't consider myself that interesting a person. I've a PhD in chemistry, Dartmouth, 1991. I've been working in the field of chemistry for just about 19 years now. I got into furry fandom while I was still a graduate student back in the late 1980s. Furry fandom was just getting off the ground then. They had just come up with a name for it. And I just started going to conventions, started talking with other furries, and at some point I was busy telling a story in a lobby of a hotel, and I was getting into it, and I was starting to use these wonderful gestures and things, and being dramatic and stuff, and a big crowd started to gather, and the more I talked, the bigger the crowd got. And after 15 minutes or so, I finished the story. I think I was complaining about my job at the time, and everybody went, yay! And I thought, these people got no lives. Yes, okay. Well, the organizers of the convention contacted me and asked me if I would come back and do it the following year as a scheduled event. And I said, what, complain about my job? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, good. So I became known as a raconteur. They put me on stage right now all over the world. They fly me to every continent I can think of to get up on stage and just talk, and I guess people like it because they keep inviting me back. Around 1998, I was invited to be guest of honor at a little convention called Albany Anthrocon. And I'm not to this day exactly sure what they did. I went in as guest of honor, and when I came out, I was chairman. And I went home and sat down like, hey, I'm chairman. Wait. So that was, 12 years ago. I have been the chairman and CEO since then. It was a fan-run convention at the time. When I took it over, I incorporated it. I founded Anthrocon Incorporated in 1998. I believe we were the first furry convention to actually have an incorporated entity. And that year, nobody has any registration records. Things were very haphazard in those days. We believe there was somewhere around 600 attendees. This year's convention upcoming, we may well push 5,000. So I would like to take the credit for that. I'd like to say it's because of my amazing leadership. No, I happen to be lucky enough to get probably the finest crew of staff and volunteers any convention organizer could ask for. They do the work, I get the credit. The character itself, the full name is Kagamushi. And originally, it was a samurai cockroach that I developed in 1991 when I was first really getting into the fandom myself. I wanted something unique. I wanted something that nobody else had. And I was in a virtual world called Furry Muck. It was one of the original furry chat worlds that we had online. And I'm there looking at all these people who had described themselves as various animals and things, and I thought, let's see what I can find that nobody else has. How about a bear? No, there's 3 of those. A wolf? No, there's a fox. God, no, you cannot sling a dead cat without hitting a fox in this fandom. And I went out to the college bookstore. I was actually here in Chicago. It was at the University of Chicago. I was doing a postdoc at the time. And I bought Peterson's Field Guide to North American Wildlife. And I'm leafing through it, trying to get some inspiration, something unique that is also me, something I can be. And while this was going on, I noticed out of the corner of my eye a shadow. And this enormous, monstrous, greasy, black Asian cockroach came scuttling up the side of my computer monitor. Now, I'm a country boy. I'd never seen one before, and I was completely weirded out. And I'm going, go away, get. When I saw them on TV, you turn on the light and they run away. And this thing just turned and reared up at me. And my fear gave way to this strange admiration. And I said, that is a ballsy little roach. And the wheels started to turn, and the idea of the fearless samurai cockroach came to mind. There was a fantastic film by director Akira Kurosawa back a number of years ago called Kagamusha, the shadow warrior, it means. Well, mushi in Japanese is bug. So Kagamushi, the shadow bug, was a natural pun on that.